This is Ethan Griggs, and this is the first episode of a limited video series I'm going to do called Second Takes. And it will involve anytime I see a film in theaters a second time. And the first episode is about One Battle After Another, which I've just seen in theaters for the second time. And I will say it's even better the second time than it was the first time around. And written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and heavily inspired by the Thomas Pynchon novel Vineland. And the thing about it is I do spoilers in the 70s versus the 90s videos. No spoilers in either the quickie reviews, which I do the quickie reviews for every movie I see in theaters. So if you always check those out. And in these little second takes that'll pop up here and there intermittently they're spoiler free, because if stuff's still in the theaters, you don't need to spoil it. You know, it's trash. You know, people need to see it in the theaters for themselves. But stuff that's been out 30 to 50 years, I'm not too worried about spoilers, because you ain't seen it by now. You probably didn't give a shit. But moving on for all the introduction shit, One Battle After Another, definitely a movie that needs to be seen in theaters, because Paul Thomas Anderson, that man is the cinema. You know, it's like if you mixed Robert Altman with Martin Scorsese and Stanley Kubrick and Max Ophuls, all to just combine a tour de force of filmmaking that has a singular original voice and somebody that just, you could tell, has fun making movies and telling stories and stuff. And of course, he teamed up with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's a match made in heaven, you know, because it's like, after, you know, he turned down Boogie Nights, and now we get it almost 30 years later, they finally worked together, and it seems like everything really worked out, because, you know, of course, Mark Wahlberg was way better than what DiCaprio could have been in Boogie Nights. But here, like, the physical comedy that DiCaprio does in this movie is just amazing. You know, the film itself centers around, like, revolutionaries, you know, kind of heavily inspired, based off of the Weather Underground that was prominent in the late 60s and early 70s in America. And we see him with Teyana Taylor, who is a vision of a woman, magnificent. She's incredible in this. And, you know, they kind of have a thing. And then, you know, way down the line, you know, he's trying to find his daughter who's been taken by the resistance and all this stuff, you know. So I'm not going to get further into the plot, because you just get bogged down. Go see it for yourselves. It's definitely well worth it, you know, once, twice, maybe even 3 times. Many times you feel the need to, you know. But, you know, the whole cast is exceptional. You know, this really, it should be the year that Paul Thomas Anderson sweeps the Oscars, because they've been hoeing that man for a long time as far as giving him his, you know, accolades and stuff. And also, like, if we're talking Oscars, Regina Hall should get an Academy Award for this, because she is exceptional in this, you know. And Chase Infiniti, who plays DiCaprio's daughter in the film, she is incredible too. She's definitely got a bright future ahead of her if she keeps working with great directors like Paul Thomas Anderson. And of course, Benicio Del Toro, who is in both Anderson films this year. Earlier this year, he was in The Phoenician Scheme, directed by Wes Anderson. And then he's in One Battle After Another, done by my personal favorite Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, who I think is the best Anderson, but that's neither here nor there. And of course, Sean Penn playing his most psychotic character. And that's saying something for Sean Penn. You know, you can tell he's having fun just chewing the scenery and stuff. And the film is, like, very profound, you know, deals with a lot of relevant social issues going on, you know, in a way, because, like, the crazy thing about it, what we're going through now is kind of like a bad sequel or remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, of the 60s. And in a way, like, Paul Thomas Anderson shows that, you know, those 60s ideals in the 21st century, and how, like, they failed then too, and it's up to the younger generation to try to, or hopefully take up the mantle and do better than the sins of the past and stuff. So the film itself, you know, at the heart, it is a chase film, and it's done brilliantly. The music by Jonny Greenwood is exceptional. You know, he's been scoring Paul Thomas Anderson's films since There Will Be Blood, and this is by far the best one. Like, the intensity that the music accentuates with the anxiety and it honestly sounds a lot like some stuff that Kubrick would have in his movies too. It's just everything fits perfectly. A movie tailor-made for the cinema. Definitely go out and see it if you haven't already seen it. And if you've seen it, see it again. I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it even more the second time than I did the first time, because, like, it's very overwhelming the first time. There's a lot of stuff to take in and process, and, you know, it's definitely a film that has a better finger on the pulse of what's really going on, and, you know, what cinema should be, because for all of its, like, social commentary and conspiracy stuff in it. It's a fun satire movie that, you know, you'll be laughing and, you know, 1 minute and you just be on the edge of your seat the next minute. So if you know, for any of y'all that don't know what cinema is, go see Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another and hopefully take notes and do better movies and stuff. I know I'm going to try to anyway. So stay tuned for these videos and stay tuned for movies. You know, who knows?